So this is Star Wars Escape from the Death Star game at the low bargain hunt price of $9. Actually, when this first came out, I saw it in Barnes & Noble, and it was going for $25 or $30 or maybe $40. It was quite expensive, and I was intrigued by the action figure in it, but the price for a board game, I thought, I don't think so. But just for the action figure alone, $9 is a pretty good price for one of these of the retro collection, which I don't have any of these actually. And I'm interested to see what's in the game itself. And I thought this might make a good video. Just to show you the packaging. I think this is a reissue of a game. I'm guessing. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe this was a game that was put out in the 70s or 80s, and to capitalize on Star Wars. And I think that they're putting out another one that's Escape from the Ice Planet, which is like a Hoth game, and that also comes with another one of these figures. But I'm wondering if it's going to end up here again. And as always, I have my coffee and probably some cat interruptions coming up. So I might actually try to play this game. And the cat just came in here, so beware. This cellophane, they might start licking it. I don't know why, they just love doing that. So, okay, I've taken the plastic off, and now I'm gonna open this. Okay, so when you first open it, you see a R2-D2 spinner. You see a pack of cards. You see a slot to put the cards in. And you find a nice piece of cardboard, poster board, that you could probably do something with. And this very nice action figure. This is my first of the retro collection figures, and I see that along the edges they've made it look frayed, and on the back they have artwork that's similar but not exactly like the original vintage collection. If you go back in my videos, you can see that I own some original vintage figures. I just don't own any of these retro ones. And then there's a sticker, and the sticker sort of suggesting the special offer stickers that came on some of these. Now, Grand Moff Tarkin was never issued, so this is a kind of very much like the Funko Reaction. They're making a vintage style Grand Moff Tarkin. And I'm probably going to keep this in the card just as my one and only of the retro collection, just for the heck of it. I think it's kind of nifty. Now here we have, well, these are little stands to put game pieces on, it looks like. And I guess these are game pieces? I don't know. There's Han and Chewie and Luke and Leia. And several of the same picture in different colors. We have these cards. And you have the instructions. One sheet. Escape from the Death Star game. And what else do we have here? If we take out the spinner and take this out, we have a game board. And the game board has a picture of the Death Star. And there is the Millennium Falcon, a number of TIE fighters, stormtroopers, the control room, and then the trash compactor. And let's look at object. Be the first player to reach the rebel base after escaping from the trash compactor of Death Star. Equipment. Game board, 8 cardboard tokens with plastic bases, 4 Death Star blueprint cards, 4 tractor beam cards, spinner, and a deck of 52 force cards. Preparation. Remove tractor beam and Death Star blueprint cards from deck and set in 2 piles to one side of the board. Shuffle force cards and place in card holder on spinner. Set up each token as per diagram. So that there's 2 types of cards in this. More cellophane. And Death Star blueprint. Hold on. Tractor beam. And I guess the ones without anything on it are the force cards. These are force cards. Death Star blueprint cards. And then tractor beam cards. Okay, there's 2 piles. There's tractor beam and Death Star blueprint. And then force cards. And then the force cards go here with a spinner. Okay. Set up each token per diagram. Each player selects a color and places their 2 tokens, Leia, Luke, and Han Chewbacca, on the matching colored area of the trash compactor. Each player spins. Highest number goes first. Play moves to the left. On your turn, spin the spinner and move one of your tokens that number of spaces. A move may not be split between tokens and must follow the lines connecting the spots. You can move a token forward, backward, or sideways, but you cannot reverse directions on a given turn. If you spin a 3 and you can't move forward 2, then back 1 in order to land on a desired space. The white spots and yellow Death Star coordinate spots have no consequence, so just end your turn if you land on those spaces. If you land on a blue force spot, draw a force card from the top of the deck. Do whatever it says on the card with that token, and then end your turn. If the card says you must return to the trash compactor, move your token directly back to the matching colored area of the space. Any other penalty move back 3 must follow the shortest route to the trash compactor. When you finish with a force card, place it in the bottom of the deck. If you draw an escape from detention block force card, keep it until needed. If you draw a go to detention block force card, go directly there. You can get out of your next turn by playing the escape from detention block force card if you have one. Then spin and move as normal. Or by spinning a 3, use the spin to move. If you don't spin a 3, you may use the spin to move after another token instead. And if you haven't spun a 3 after 3 turns, you may leave the detention block on your next turn using that spin to move. More than one token can share space unless they feature the same characters. If, for example, you move your Han Chewbacca token to a space already occupied by another player's Han Chewbacca token, you must send their token back to the trash compactor. However, this rule does not apply to the detention block or Millennium Falcon spaces. Before moving to the Millennium Falcon space, you complete 2 missions. 1. Collect a Death Star blueprint card by landing on the control room space of the exact count with 1 token. 2. Collect a tractor beam card by landing on the tractor beam space by exact count with 1 token. I kind of get it now. And then you have dogfights that you use your spinner for. And there's nothing. This is actually quite simple. And then Well, let's look at some of these predicaments. These cards are so small. My hands are big. And these cards are tiny. I'm used to much bigger cards than these. I just feel like I'm gonna drop them everywhere. I guess to store these, I'll just stick them all there. Let's look at this figure. I don't know how well the retro collection has done. I can tell you that I've never actually run into one anywhere. So I guess someone's buying them up. They like them. I have the original ones, so I just think this is just kind of nifty. For $9, I'll take it because I just kind of like having one. I guess I got a few minutes left, so I'll show you this too that I found at an antique store, which is kind of funny. But these are Jabba the Hutt dancers, Ristel, Greta, and Linmi. And what's interesting about this is you can see where Star Wars toys are today versus where they used to be. This is Power of the Force line, and this is just fun. I mean, number one, if you're making a Jabba the Hutt scene, like I'm working on, you know, this is a necessary thing you'd want. But number two, look at the back. You have this great little film cell. You have a really interesting story about them. Explaining who they all were, not just a couple sentences. Like the new Star Wars action figures have sort of just kind of... Oh, that's my cats. Ignore them. They love to get into a cat fight when I'm making a video. That's just something they like to do. Oh, there's one just ran in here. And they have a rule. When I'm making a video, they must participate or get in cat fights. And she has found the cellophane. In any minute, she'll probably start licking it. because they just do that. I don't know if they think it's water or not. I'm not sure. But what I was trying to say is the Power of the Force line was just interesting. They had a lot. They put imagination into it. They have this good picture that shows the characters, and you have 3 interesting figures that were not released again, to my knowledge, that to enhance your Jabba the Hutt scene. There was just a lot more thought put into them versus now. Like, this is a recent one. This is Asti, Elo Asti, I guess, and with the variant where he has a helmet on, but look on the back. I mean, they got just a very brief description of him, and then they always try to include this kind of junk that collectors really don't want. It's just not as. Let me see if I can find an earlier one. Versus an earlier one. This is from the Legacy collection. Here's a few things to note. LOST has like no articulation. It's not a bad figure, but there is like no articulation at all. He has basic 5. He doesn't even bend it. He doesn't even turn at the waist. Whereas this Legacy collection figure, beautifully done packaging, beautiful artwork. You have a highly articulated figure, the Ugnaught. Comes with relevant accessories versus silly accessories. It came with a Build-A-Droid part, which meant you could make another relevant figure, not just junk. And you see on the line the creative and highly detailed figures that you could get. And on top of that, you have a very well-written description of the Ugnaught on the back. I'm just making a comment about quality. This is arguably one of the more popular lines, which is the vintage collection, and this is when they first started getting away from writing about the figures, and they were trying to recapture the whole vintage style. And I think everyone likes these. They're still better than this. As you can see, it's kind of, the retro line is trying to do some of that too. Here's another of the vintage collection. Highly detailed, highly articulated. The same kind of silly back where they're trying to capture the old style. This is one of the more recent ones along these lines, and this is for Rebels, the show. And you can see where it ended up. Basic 5 articulation, silly accessory that doesn't really pertain to anything, minimal description. This is the different collection. This was the I'm trying to remember what this particular collection was called. They were still on top of their game. It was similar to the vintage packaging, but the articulation was great, and the backgrounds were great. The details were great, and they would do characters that weren't well known, so you had more. Here's our old one. This is the Power of the Jedi, Power of the Force, They were pretty detailed. The articulation got better as they went. This one wasn't bad. There's a lot, the body type wasn't all that good, but it came with some kind of prop. Sometimes it had like a slide um, or whatever. But they had a pretty good line of creative figures to get. They were certainly cheaper. This is similar. Also, Phantom Menace line. It came with a Comtech chip, which was really cool. You got a little thing that looked like a Jedi communicator, and this would say line from the movie. This was Yoda, a really popular figure. He came with a throne, which was a relevant accessory, and it talks about the figure, has a description of the figure, talks about the Comtech thing. This is a Target exclusive Utapau Shadow Trooper in a protector case. And this was that super articulation that you started finding on all of the... that just became the standard after a while. And this is just a beautifully done action figure. And this was from Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones had a few problems with that line. They had some really ridiculous poses, but the detail was amazing. As you can see, Shakti's detail just really good. But she was in a pose that was really hard to get out of. So, and they also did come with these great little backdrops. That seemed like something that was kind of specific to Attack of the Clones. This is also from the Attack of the Clones. Well, it was from the same line that came out, and this was Tinto Pagales, one of the pod racers, I think. And he comes with a very specific parts, but just a lot of fun. This Greedo is an old one. It's actually signed by one of the costume people who wore the costume. It's an old Power of the Force Greedo. Not a bad little figure. That may be all I have to show you in this video tonight. So we started with a game and we ended up with a big pile of action figures. But I was just trying to make this worth your time, so I know 30 minutes is usually a good point. But I did want to kind of add in a little bit of my thoughts about the decline of Star Wars action figures. We started out with the kind of fun Power of the Force, but it wasn't just the decline, it's also just the price. These figures go for a lot. I mean, this is an Ollie's price tag. Ollie's is a closeout store. This used to be the price for a new figure. Now, you're getting, these things are ending up in bargain stores because now this is vintage line is pretty good, but when you get figures like this, these basic 5 articulation with junk that's added, with very little description about the character, nothing to really get you thinking about the character or really particularly wanting the character, you get. And then they're trying all kinds of things now. I got a glimpse of the 2020 figures, and they're gonna eventually probably re-release all of the old classic 80s figures with new molds, which means those people who spent hundreds of dollars are pretty soon going to be able to buy themselves a yak face for $20 that looks, for all intents and purposes, exactly like the original. And then the question arises, is it worth paying $300 because your yak face has a certain date stamped on its leg? That's what I mean. in a desperate kind of way, they're going to cheapen the value of all of the stuff by not making figures people really want, but basically just desperately trying to make anything that people will buy. And I just don't think that. One thing I did notice is I don't believe there was ever a dedicated action figure line for Rise of Skywalker. And I think that's the first time in history that a new Star Wars movie didn't have a dedicated line of action figures. And that's interesting to think about. Anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead and call this good. And I hope you liked it. So please rate, comment, and subscribe.